So I think as we look at mindfulness, for me, it's about a couple of things, right? It's about how you feel when you're engaging in social media. It's certainly, as Iskra said, how it could impact the people who are receiving your message. And then I wanted to look at today too, holistically, like what can we do as a community of really passionate and caring people to impact more positively online? Because I think whether you've got 2 followers, 2 million followers, we are all CEOs of our own media empire. If you think about it, with what I just told you, the gatekeepers that used to stand in the way of your self-expression, now you have a chance, literally, you pick up the phone, you create, you share. But with that, I think we have to think like editors, we have to think like curators, we have to think like people in relationships. Is what I'm saying harmful? Is what I'm saying helpful? Am I adding to the narrative of that 24-hour news cycle, right? Am I sharing news and information that's going to be inspiring to somebody else? Or am I doing something, am I taking somebody down unnecessarily, either by making a snarky comment or retweeting a, kind of a negative post. So there are lots of things that we do that I think impact the way it ripple effects out there, and that's what we wanted to talk about today. So one of the first exercises that we have is for you all to do a little bit of auditing of your own social profiles. So we are going to give you, so we have a worksheet that we created. It's a social media audit worksheet. So we'll pass those out now, and of course, for people who are going to participate in this post the workshop we're having today, they're going to be able to download this and do this wherever they are. And what I love about this tool, it's very simple. All of our exercises are pretty simple, but they're meant to be self-reflective. So there is no right or wrong today. There is no judgment. We're not collecting it or grading it. But I want you to be as brutally honest as you can. I want you to think like an editor, right? I want you to think about your profile. Think about one platform that you're on. Maybe it's your favorite one, your most prolific one. And as you look at this audit page, there's 3 columns. And the first one says, when people see my feed, they'll find. Okay? So what that means for you is think like an editor. If I were going to pick up, if Iskra was an editor, I'll use Iskra as a great example because I am a consumer of her content. I love her as a friend, but I also follow her online. So as a consumer, I know with Iskra, for me, my experience is I'm going to find relationships because I actually love when Iskra is with her friends or when I'm looking at her relationships in her life, and right now you're in a special one, and so I like following along, right? There's a personal feeling. I'll find personal relationships. Definitely will find inspiration and information. But I'll also find experiences. I'll get to live voyeuristically through Fashion Week in Paris or in other places that I may not be in, right? And that's partially why we like social media. We get to transport ourselves into places. So I want you to think though about, honestly, if somebody were to look at your feed, list 2 or 3 things that you think they would find. If they looked at all of that content on that feed, right? What would they say about your platform? That's the column number 1. Then we want you to go a step deeper and think about what you might not be posting on that platform. So people might see this when they come to my Instagram page, but I wish people could see or would see this. So maybe just give yourself a moment to think about what is going on in your life that you're not sharing or posting, that you would want to, but things that, that are unexpressed. And then the 3rd column is how you might like to shift that, if you would, right? So I will be mindful and work to add what. So the bottom line is this all comes to, how could you be more of yourself on that platform? And maybe right now you feel like that is what you're doing, and that's okay too. This isn't assuming that you're not. It's just a chance for us to take a step back and think about our relationship to a way that we might spend a lot of time sharing ourselves online.
And I think it's very interesting because I think during that process, you'll start to realize, oh wow, I'm not sharing that, or I'm not. And what's the should? Why am I posting things that I feel I should post online? And I've certainly felt the pressure to do that because when I talk about anything political, or recently I talked about male suicide, I mean, it's interesting how your brain rewards you and also just gives you a negative feeling. Like I lost 1,000 followers just posting about something that I thought was important. So that triggers the oh, well, I shouldn't post those things. Generally, I know that that's okay, but I can see how you would be pressured into just thinking, I know this works. And there's, your brain works in synapses. So it kind of trains you to think, well, if I post that type of content, I'm going to get more likes, I'm going to get more followers. That must be a positive thing. And that social media is one of the only things in our lives that we are not only comparing between each other, we're comparing our last post. So we have multiple ways of comparison that keeps us in this really interesting place. And so I think that a lot of the things you post might be pressurized or things you should post. And we were talking about this about today. We're throwing away the should, honestly. Like, I really just stopped thinking about, like, what should I post? I'm just going to do a fun shoot that I like to do, or I'm just going to post this up. One thing that I know I tend to still hold myself to is quality of photos. But that's also because I'm a creative person and I uphold seeing a good quality photo. I've been in this industry a long time. So yeah, I think you should crack on with your worksheets.
Yeah.
There
Crack
is no
on.
wrong answers.
Crack on it, and really, and if you need to, I know we asked you to turn your phones off. If you want to go into your feed right now to look at it and give a realistic memory, that's okay to do. And again, this is no judgment here today. This is just for you to take a look to get a gauge. Are you happy with where it is? Is this a reflection of you that you feel is in sync, or are there things you think you might want to add or change?
That is funny, because when I did start social media, like Jess said, I genuinely did exactly the same thing. I did columns, and I was like, I want it to be a magazine, because I was like, how else are people going to be interested if it's just like a...
So true.
Ugh. So I did the same thing. I did my little columns. I was like, oh, well, I like this, and I do this, and I do this. I'll start off then. I'm hoping people see my feed. They'll find positivity, compassion, some fashion, love, beach and travel. I wish people would see my creativity, my humor. I'm probably not that funny, but my friends are. My work ethic and my intelligence. I will be more mindful to add more creative content, more of my personality, and behind the scenes, so you can kind of see the more business side of what I do.
Lovely.
Who'd like to share?
Awesome. Thank you.
When people see my feed, I think they'll find positivity. Was also the first thing that I wrote. Happiness, living a fulfilling life, and encouragement. I try to only post like happy, positive things on my page. I wish people would see though, like the unconventional knowledge. You know, kind of like those deep diving things, like how we spoke about yesterday during the Real Talk, how there's so just much structure in society and the way things that we're taught, and a lot of people don't take the time to do that research, but I don't post those kinds of things because of those reasons. Also, my true feelings about the world we live in, also relating to the different types of knowledge and things that I've learned about. And then my true inner self, because I'm also kind of private, and so I don't post a ton of photos of myself. It's more like inspirational quotes or like nature photos or things like that, only if it's a really good photo. And so I will be mindful to work to add more regular content, because I don't post very frequently. More things that inspire me and causes that I care about.
Do you want to post more regularly? Do you feel like you don't post enough?
Yeah, sometimes, but also it's sometimes because I don't know. I guess I just don't feel the need to like put my life out there on the regular, and maybe there's just not something like today. I didn't come across anything so far that has been inspiring. Like, oh, let me do this. And also, I kind of feel for my personal self, like I have a couple hundred followers, but I don't know. I just feel like people don't care about my life that much. So.
But I would just love to say that like hurts me, just because I know how much of an incredible person you are, for you to even be able to say that out loud, because you know it's I don't want to say it's fake that people care more about my life just because I have followers, but it's just because they're seeing it more constantly. There's an algorithm that plays out, so people are gonna more likely to see my photos than yours, or because of the lifestyle I lead, which society has said is potentially more glamorous, people seem to be more interested in it. You know, all the people around you that really, really matter do care about you and your life, so that really is what matters more. And I say it's kind of interesting because from someone with a large following standpoint, it can seem like people really care about you in your life, but at the same time, if they find any way to tear you down, like they will, or they'll criticize you, or, you know, I can be in a situation where, you know, I'm surrounded by people and I would just want to eat a packet of crisps or sit down and talk, but people are needing to speak to me or take photos because like they want something from me. So it's actually, people don't really care that much about you as a human, as a person. It's kind of this weird construction of...
I think, yeah, you're right. I was going to say, what inspired me to think about was that's why we call it a relationship.
Yeah.
Because it has to be a give and a take, right? And the reason I asked about that, quite honestly, is because I often have a narrative that plays that says I should post more. And I should post more for my business. I should post more to connect to people. I should post more to stay relevant, like all the shoulds. And the reason I asked just candidly if you felt like you weren't is because I'm actually playing with how to do less but better. Because it's more in alignment for me and who I am in my life and how it works for me. It will be very different for other people, but for me, I often think about, you've seen those funny videos, I'm sure, online that show you what we would look like if we were our social media come to life. Like if I walked around and after Iskra just said that, I went, right? Like it'd be awkward, or like retweet, or like whatever it is. Like I almost sometimes think about social media as a lot of shouting out there, right? If you're not posting purposefully, which we're going to get to in a minute, or if you're not connected to the why. So no judgment on that. I was just curious if, if you feel like, because I think that is a narrative, right? Do you feel like that too, that you're not doing enough, or you need to be doing more? I need to be, somehow you're going to have FOMO. Something's going to get left out. I'm not going to get there. And I'm trying to find the balance.
Yeah.
I thought it was maybe because it's just an age and stage where this is not my primary place, but I understand that in general about relationships. Like there's only so much time we have.
And also, I've taken meetings with social media platforms who have consistently told me you must post more. Yeah. And the algorithm will trick you into believing you have to post more. So that's what they're all forcing you to think you need to do. And so it's very, we have to try and step away and realize, are we making our own decision on how we're living online?
But wouldn't you think this would be much like anything about mindfulness? It is all sort of a balance or a harmony, right, of that. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you going first. Who else would like to share their audit? Sounds so serious, but really it's a reflection. We'll call it a social media reflection. Yeah, please. Wonderful. And tell us your names when you introduce yourself.
My name's Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
So for when people see my feed, they'll find, I post a lot about my best friends and my relationships and traveling, and I'm a cheerleader, so I post a lot about that.
Very cool. What do you cheer for?
St. Vincent College.
Cool.
I wish people could see how much I love my life and what I do, and all the amazing opportunities that I've been given. I would also like to be mindful and work more harder to add current and fun activities that I'm doing. I'm not very up to date with my Instagram. I just kind of do it whenever. And more creative posts and more inspiring pictures to go back to getting people to see that there's a lot of fun things that you can do. You just kind of have to really look for it and make it happen for yourself. No one's just gonna hand it to you.
It's great. It's very thoughtful. Yeah. Who else wants to share? Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Sarah as well.
Hi, Sarah, number 2.
So basically when people look at my feed, they'll see positivity and happiness, basically what everybody else is saying, friends and family, and different experiences. But what I would like people to see is that it's not all positive. So if you look at my feed, you'll look and be like, oh, everything looks so fun, they must have had a great time, but you don't need to see the whole picture. So if maybe something bad happened and nobody saw it just because it wasn't in the picture. So I would like to add more of the realness in, I guess. I just don't know the best way to do that.
You can post a crying selfie like I did, and then get every single one of your family members calling you the world is ending.
Are you okay?
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I'm okay because I was able to post it actually and talk about it and offload, and I'm excited I was able to share that moment and create a conversation. And the amount of DMs I got, a lot of crying selfies, everyone, all different ages, people telling me everything about their marriages and kids and dogs and everything. It was, and it was just as if it, I'm always shocked by pinnacle moments like that when I feel like I've done something and I'm overwhelmed by the reaction because I'm like, this is just something that people don't do or that people don't see, and I'm like, it's so normal. I'm like, we all cry. It shouldn't be that big of a deal, but the fact it is, wow, I clearly needed to do that.
Well, I might tie a couple of these points together because, when we launched the Dove campaign, that was one of the first times over 15 years ago where we saw women in their underwear who, didn't look like the women that we saw every single day. And obviously the work that we're doing with Aerie is very in that vein, and that we're sort of shining a light on real. But I think we do live in a culture, a visual culture, and more a visual culture that demands an element of perfectionism and completeness that real life is not. We are not complete. We are all works in progress, and we are messy as hell. But we don't show that, right? And especially on platforms like an Instagram, where it is about beautiful photos.
It's a lovely, nice square.
Right, a lovely, nice square that fits in that box.
Yeah,
so I wanted to tie those pieces together because I do think our culture and the work that we're doing with Aerie Real and Aerie Real Life is about moving into a new space of self-disclosure, but I think it also comes with responsibility of the why. Of asking yourself why we want to share more and how to do that in a way that feels responsible. Because I've also seen people take to their platforms to share things that personally make me feel it's inappropriate, or it feels a little dangerous or a little unsafe because I can tell it's not anchored in a why, right? It might be a cry for attention, or it might be a copycat syndrome, or it might be a way that they're kind of emulating what they think is there. So I love the idea of bringing more realness, and maybe that's something we can dig into today, which is it's very easy on social media, as you and I talk about a lot, that it becomes a highlight reel of all the great things in our life. But it doesn't always mean that we have to go to the complete polar opposite and show all the, terrible things, because sometimes those need to be expressed in private or safer places, in places with people that you have real life relationships with, not just online relationships. And so it's a balance, right? But I think what both Sarah's and everybody have been saying so far is really important in that it's kind of a hybrid of where we're at. It's a snapshot, but it's not the whole picture. Yeah. Who else wants to share? Yeah.
My name is also Sarah.
Wow. We have hit the Sarah Jack. Anybody else named Sarah in here? Oh,
And Natalie's middle name is Sarah. Yeah?
Your middle name is Sarah?
Natalie's, yeah.
No, okay, well, we hit the Sarah jackpot today. But now, okay, tell us what we have.
Alright, so basically I said when people look at my feed, they'll see, like you just addressed, like the highlights of my life. And they're, as much as I hate to admit it, they're pictures where I look the best. And they weren't necessarily the best experiences I had. So I kind of wish people would see like those hidden moments where my friends and I got like this amazing picture together, but I didn't like the way I looked. I kind of wish that I would have just like gone ahead and posted it just because it was an amazing memory.
Can you, sorry to interrupt you, I'm just curious, would you give us, if you can, an example of what that might be like, a picture that might look great but the experience wasn't great? Is it about who you're with, or like, I'm sorry,
Probably the lighting and the angles.
prom? It was prom.
Beautiful photos, but I had just an awful experience my senior year.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just wasn't.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a great memory, and I don't understand why I felt the need to post it just because I liked the way it looked.
Bingo. That is an amazing thing to think about,
thank
right?
you for sharing,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because we're compelled, again, that's why I was asking, do we feel like compelled to share in a compulsory way, or is this something we want to share because it was a great night with people I love, right? That's an awesome self-discovery question for all of us to keep asking.
And there's so many times where the quieter I am on social media is sometimes when I'm having the best time right there and then.
And you're in the moment.
You're just in the moment. And yesterday, we had one of the most powerful days. I didn't do anything.
Yep.
I didn't capture even like one quote. We were just so in it. And so it's very interesting how people might think, probably just in bed having a boring day. And it's probably the opposite. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt that. I just was curious if you could, I think the more examples, the better, because I feel like we don't want to talk about this abstractly. We want to get really specific. So thank you for sharing that. And keep going.
Yeah.
That was just pretty much the one thing I wanted to work on, was just sharing those more wholesome experiences that I have with my friends and just people in my life in general.
Great. Excellent. Any other Sarahs or other people not named Sarah that want to add in? I'd love to hear a couple more.
Well, I'll just tag on to kind of what we were already talking about. My name's Mackenzie, by the way.
Thank goodness.
But I'm a very in the present kind of person. I'm not really on my phone all that often. And when I am having a really good time, I'm definitely not on my phone. So I don't post anything that has to do with like my real life. Pretty much because I'm having a good time. But I have a lot of family and friends that I don't live near. And I'm not really great at like calling or texting all of the time. So I wish I did post a couple more live things just so they know that like I'm good.
Right.
Like you don't have to worry about me.
Mackenzie, weird question from an older person.
Yeah.
Do we ever pick up the phone and tell people that?
I do.
Okay.
I'm getting in the habit more.
Okay.
And especially I just got a car that has Bluetooth, so now I just do it on the
that's
fly more often, which is good.
But I just asked that because it's so funny, right? I think about it too in the same way, which is like they'll know about my life through all of these photos and stories, and I'm like, I am old enough to remember calling people to say, hi, Uncle Joel, I'm great. Like, here's what's happening, right? But we forget a little bit about that connection.
Yeah. And my friends and I, we've tried a different app where you could basically send video messages to each other. So it's kind of like Snapchat, but they don't go away. And like you can see them and you can watch them like over and over again. So it's kind of like, it's like when you have time to FaceTime but not live. So you can have like conversations and like, oh, like, you know, my friend like Sophie, like, oh, Sophie, like your, you know, dress looked really pretty, like where were you going, like, and like asking questions, and then they can answer back whenever. So like that's been really great, but that's not exactly a social media.
Right.
It's like a messaging.
But it sounds like social media in your life, going back to that board, plays the role of connector as a way for you to stay connected to family you don't live nearby. And you'd like to do more of that, it sounds like. Slightly more. I get you. I feel you. Who else would
Post
like to go?
brunch on a Sunday. Pancakes were great.
So on my feed, my name is Julia, as we know from the bathroom. And my feed is definitely a lot of my cats, which I think people like, and then a lot of my travel pics. So you know, it's me on the Great Wall or climbing a mountain in Norway, which I like. I use my feed as kind of like a diary to remember what I'm doing. But I think what I want to be mindful to add more is more everyday things to show that those can be great days and not everything has to be so extreme as like traveling to another country or doing something like that. Just so I can remember kind of the everyday interactions with family and friends. I think I also want to try to add more commenting, which isn't necessarily what I'm posting, but this year I'm trying to comment more on people's posts. I know they put a lot of effort into them, you know, with my friends or someone I don't know, like a celebrity. Just, you know, thank you for posting that, or they like what you did to create more of a conversation and not just a like when they do put the effort into the post.
Well, that also reminds me of a relationship, right? You have to build into that. If we had just a one-sided friendship, that would be pretty boring and kind of tough to maintain. But in some ways, social media can be like that, right? Like you said, I type this into my phone and I don't know where it's, you know, you don't think about where it's going. I like that thoughtfulness of kind of giving back to other creators or giving back to people. And
that's important as well, knowing your power. As someone on social media, you are deciding what you're seeing by what you're liking and what you're commenting on. And so it can often be, you know, you'll just post on, you know, some huge celebrity or what's culturally being talked about and you might comment on it. Like that's just going to feed into that world. So that's why, you know, I do get disheartened when I post something that to me feels more important. If it's, you know, about the LGBT community, and then it gets like a fifth of the likes of my swimwear photo. And I just like, I know, and I do feel like some people read it, but I just feel like they're not liking or commenting on it. So it's kind of like hiding more important content. So I'm definitely trying to make myself be more active of seeking out important content that I want to get seen more and interacting with it so it does. So that the absolute bull crap that's out there, you know, doesn't keep remaining at the top. Like we as a community have to kind of work together and say, this is more important. We should be, you know, sharing and talking about this, not just the garbage.
It's feedback in a lot of ways, but we also know it's manipulated feedback because of algorithms as well, right? So sometimes we're not getting like a direct response as you would when I'm sitting across from you and having lunch, and you can tell where I'm fitting with what you're saying, right? Sometimes we just can't get always a really great read. Can we have one more example of your reflection on social media? Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, please.
Bring it home, Sarah. Bring it home.
I guess kind of taking it back to what you were saying about
using it as a highlight reel, I definitely very much do that. I was really lucky to have a lot of really great experiences in travel while I was in college. And so after finishing, I feel like my life is certainly not as glamorous as it was. I just kind of go to work and go home, and I feel like I don't really do much else that's really kind of social media worthy or very exciting. But at the same time, it's like things that I'm enjoying. So just because I know it's not as cool or interesting as stuff that I used to do, I'm like, oh, this isn't worth it. So I definitely want to try to just make my feed more real and like more up to date as what I'm doing, rather than just like kind of reflected on like the great things I did, and just because it's not as glamorous, like kind of compare it in like my life now to what it was just like a year, 2, 3, 4 years ago. And almost kind of comparing like as like it's my own highlight reel, and I'm almost comparing my current life to my highlight reels.
Right. And guess what? We would do that think about it, if we do that in our everyday life, we compare our life now to past moments, right? Yeah. Oh, I can't share that, or I'm not where I used to be, or I did this once. And what I hear in your comment, and I'm grateful that you shared it, was a holding back of sharing where you are, right? At the risk of it maybe not feeling like it stacks up to what expectations are. But think about how many ways we do that in our life. Maybe not sharing of getting into a relationship because we feel like we're not ready, or that person isn't that other person, or all the reasons that we might hold back. Again, I know I keep harping on the relationship piece, but I've been spending so much time talking about social media and its role in our lives, and it always feels like these two disparate things, right? Like here's me, and then here's this person I am online, and I feel like the realness that we're all seeking is the understanding that that is all one and the same. Right? So the way that we do how we do on social media might be how we do our life, right? Do we hold back? Do we only tell the highlight stories and not share the realer stuff, right? Do we compare and despair? Do we spend a lot of time being jealous about where we think we should be versus acknowledging the gratitude of where we are?
Agreed.
So I think, just going back to the mindfulness piece, you've done a really excellent job of thinking about that. And we want to encourage you to keep doing that, because it's always an imperfect art, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always evolving, it's always changing, you're always learning new things. Some days you're just not going to want to post or gone, and that's absolutely fine. And I guess I might be in sort of a different position in the sense that there is like a work element to it as well with what I do. But at the same time, if I didn't find joy in it, or I didn't find it was bringing something into my life, I wouldn't do it.
You also do something that I think getting to know you a little bit better, I know does bring you joy, which is the fact of leveraging your platform to help other people.
Yes, definitely.
Like understanding, and I think that we sometimes might relegate that to somebody saying like, oh, well, a person with many, many, many followers can do that, but I can't because I've got a small community.
Yes,
but I think the act of sharing and giving back using a platform outside of a personal goal can also be quite fulfilling.
Yeah, I follow a couple of people that literally have, 200 followers, and they post some of the best little quotes, and I smile. It makes me smile, and I like it. Or, I might send it to a friend. So people do have impact. It doesn't matter if you have a bunch of followers or hardly any. You can still put out positivity. And again, you're doing it for yourself. If you're going to create something, be proud of it as well. I'm not just going to put something up just to put something up. I'm going to be proud of what I put up, and it's going to have some kind of sense of accomplishment even as well. And if I've thought about the caption, or maybe I've taken time to create the photo and I had enjoyed the moment and what I was wearing. So be open to the opportunity of it being something that, like we talked about earlier, is self-expression,
You did an excellent job sort of auditing a feed in a very short period of time, and I know we're giving you lots to think about. I want to kind of go from thinking to feeling.